Hey, everybody. So I just wanted to share with y'all a resource that we have in the district. One of the common problems that teachers have reported to me is that they're struggling with being able to see students work in real time, knowing if they understand, really doing those checks for understanding in the moment and adjusting their instruction appropriately. So I wanted to show you a resource that we have at Westlake ISD, which is Nearpod, which has been purchased for everybody already. So I literally just type in Nearpod. You're going to log in with your district Google account. And once you're in, it should look something like this. I could either create a lesson myself or I could use something that's in their library. And there's a huge library. We have a school library, a district library where you can share resources with one another. And there's also the Nearpod library. So I'm going to start there and I can go to the subject of science and browse what they have, or I could type in specifically for what I'm looking for. So let's say I'm looking for atomic model. And I can browse through based on grade level in terms of what's appropriate. So right now I'm going to go ahead and pick, I know many of you have already started with the atom in 8th grade, for instance, which is where this question came from. And next you're going to be moving on to the periodic table. So I'll go ahead and do this lesson. So I can browse through to see what's there and decide if this is something as a preview that I want to add to my library or not, which I already have. So once you click add to my library here, then you can click show in my library. So once you add something, you don't have to search for it anymore. It's part of your library. And so from here, I can do it as live participation or student paced. And so for this one, I'm going to want to do it as live participation so I can control and kind of move along with my students as we go. So I have the code that I'll have students go to, which is HDIVE, and I'm going to launch this session. And I would do this once I'm ready to meet with my students. Oh, and my code has changed now, so it's going to change each time I have a new class. And so I would have students, I could either post this in my Google Classroom, and I can have them go to it, or if I'm already Zooming with them, I could tell them to enter that in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, as a student, go to Nearpod code, and I'm going to act as a student. So that way you can see the teacher view and the student view during this. So I inserted my code, and now as the student, I'm just going to put on here student. You would have them put their full name, just that way you know it's the student, not the science strategist. So as a student, I see in the live view what the teacher sees. So the teacher controls the timing of the lesson. So I'm going to go to the next slide. Here, this teacher inputted their notes, and so the student can automatically just download those notes there. I'm going to keep moving. So the next one, how does the periodic table help us know more about the world around us? And so as a teacher, I would go over my lesson objectives, and then I'm going to start off with a quick explore activity. In the teacher view, I get this. It says the slide is a collaborate board. Would you like to approve student comments before they are posted? So I can have control if they post something that's inappropriate. I'm going to go ahead and say no for this. And then once I do that on the students, and they can enter what they want. So what do you already know about the periodic table of elements? Share as many details as you can. So a student may say, all things are made of elements. They may say gold is an element. They may say elements are the purest form of a substance. So they're getting out their prior knowledge, what they already know. And in the meantime, you can see, and students can see what everybody else is posting. Right? So once we're done here, I'm going to go ahead and move the slide as the teacher. So this one offers an awesome simulation to build an atom. For this simulation, unfortunately, you're not able to see as students explore. This is more of an explorative activity at the beginning, and then there's follow-up questions afterwards. But just to show you what the students would be able to do, there's 3 activities they can choose from. And so they're just exploring and learning. So what happens is I add a proton. I'm going to take a look and see. And you may tell them, once you're finished with this activity, I want for you to tell me as you change protons, neutrons, and electrons, what changes about the atom. So I notice that the identity is changing as I do that. Let's say if I try to put a neutron out here, it won't let me. So right away, I'm going to know, okay, neutrons have to go in the center or in the nucleus. And I want to notice what's going to be changing here. You know what? I noticed over here, I want to know if this is stable or unstable. right now. And let me add, oh, I guess electrons can't go in the outer orbital first. So it's going to correct me. And so the students are just kind of able to learn as they go. Okay, so it looks like it's neutral if my electrons are the same as my protons. Once I'm done with this activity, I can move on to the symbol activity. And I'm going to do something similar, but now it's going to give me my symbols over here. And so I can kind of explore using this. The same thing, then there's a game at the end. There's 4 different games that I can choose from. It says find the element. So I know that one is a proton and one is a neutron. One would be hydrogen. It asks me if it is an ion or a neutral atom. I'm going to check it. It's correct. I'm going to go on to the next one. Protons are 10. Find it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. I'm going to say is neon. Let's say if the student thought this was an ion, what would happen? They get feedback right away. I get to try again. Again, it's neon, and it is a neutral atom. So the student can do this all the way through. They'll get a score at the end. I'm going to go ahead and go back to the teacher view, though. So let's say if our time is up, then I'm going to have the follow-up question. So I'll instruct students, describe how changing the particles changed the atom. So here as a student, I could say, changing protons changed the identity. Changing neutrons changed the mass. And as a teacher, I can see over here that my student doesn't have an answer yet. So I'm going to remind them as I see that nobody's answered. As you enter, go ahead and hit submit. Let me move this. All right, so changing electrons changes the charge. So then I'm going to submit as a student. Over here, I start to see answers populate in. So I can click on that as the teacher, and I can literally see, instead of saying student, it would say Claudia. So I would know what student it is. And I can just hit this tab over to see each of my student answers. Let's say a student, whether correct or incorrect, if I hit the share button and I go over here, notice it doesn't say the word student or Claudia, so it's anonymous. Then I can say, is this correct or incorrect? Why or why not? We can start a class discussion as I have Zoom open at the same time. All right. So from there, I'm just going to unshare and close out as the teacher, and I can move on to my next slide. So from here, let's try together. So that was our explore at the beginning. I'm going to move into today's lesson. From here, this template allows the students to move through at their own pace. So you can kind of be walking them through and tell them what slide you're on, but they're able to go at their own pace. So that way, if they're a little bit faster or slower at processing, they can control that. And that's an option that you can change when you set it up. So I'm going to skip past each of these. I want to show you more about the feedback or the immediate checks for understanding that you're able to see with students. So from here, I'll say, okay, answer, you have 10 seconds. What is the atomic number for carbon? And students can start answering. Once they click it, make sure you tell them to hit submit. They can edit their answer afterwards, but I start to see student responses. So you'll see there's this little bit of a lag time. There we go. Student answered A, and I can start to see percentages change on the left-hand screen over here. Once they are done, I can hit this share button so I can share the data out with students and say, all right, as a class, 100% of us chose this. Awesome job. Or, ooh, we're really struggling between 6 and 12. What did people think who chose the answer 12? And you can lead a discussion that way. You can also modify your instruction based on the feedback you're receiving. You might want to give them another answer similar to this if a lot of them got it wrong after you review, or move on. Next question, what is the atomic mass for carbon? Let's say I saw students are doing really well on this. I'm just going to keep going. So you don't need to do every single slide. You can accommodate your students as you see that they need support or not. All right, so I'm going to keep going. This draw function is really awesome. A lot of you have asked, how do I implement whiteboards? This is it. So you can either have a background like what is on the slide, or you can even just have a blank background that's in there, and you can ask any questions, that you see that students maybe are struggling with or need more practice with. So once this is up, as a student, I see this here. So it says use your best judgment to determine what each item represents. So as a student, and the first time they use this, it's going to take them a while because they're going to start and they're going to say, I messed up, and they have to figure out where to find the eraser. And then they may say, you know what, I want to type instead. and they have to know they have to move this over. So it'll take them a little bit, but once they use this once or twice, then they're going to become really good at it. So I'm going to say this is an element. Next, I'm going to add text again because I prefer that over writing, and I'm going to say this is the proton. And just so you know, as a teacher, when you are on this board, it says student in progress. Here's those whiteboards. You see the thinking as they go. You can see the erasing. You can see their thought process. And so this, I think, for me is the most important tool on Nearpod because you're really able to see their thought process. And like I said, I can just, if there were more students logged in, just hit the over arrow and I can see each of my students with their name up top, and I can start commenting, oh, you know, Juan, I see that you put this here. Great job. Keep working. Or, ooh, go ahead and revisit, you know, the bottom answer. You're really close. I want to see you retry on that one. And so you can give them feedback as you're going. The same thing, once students are finished and they hit the submit button, then you're going to see that you have the option to share as you go through. So now I can share this out. And if I share it, all students are going to see that. It's not going to be tied to any student name. And so you can go ahead and talk about the answer choices that came up here. All right. From there, I can go ahead and move forward. So I'm going to unshare and close this out, and I can start moving forward on my slides page. And so I just want to share with you, I'm going to go through the rest of the PowerPoint. Something else you can do is short answer. So what short answer looks like for them is just here. How many protons does potassium have? So I can say it has 19. I'll submit it. And again, as the teacher, I'll start to see the answers with a short lag time start to appear. All right, so I can ask all sorts of open-ended questions. I really do like the idea of adding, and you can add an activity on the fly. As you see here, so let's say I see that students are struggling. I want to add a whiteboard so they can just answer questions that I come up with on the spot, just like I would in person. And I can either add a draw it, a slide, an open-ended question, web content, true and false. So to do that whiteboard, I would do a draw it, and I would give instructions, or I can just put, you know, verbal instructions if I'm going to ask multiple questions. I don't even have to put it on there, and I'll share it out with them. And once I do that, students can start writing right away. So I can make up questions on the spot. I could say, you know, go ahead and draw an atom of lithium and include the correct number of protons, neutrons, and electrons. And so they can do that there. So with that kind of walks you through at least one lesson on Nearpod that can give us real-time feedback, and that way we can give our students real-time feedback as well. I hope that this was helpful for you. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. If you're not a science person, this works just as well with any other content area. My name is Claudia Martinez. I'm the K-12 science strategist, and my email is clamartinez@wisd.us. So thank y'all. Happy Nearpodding.